Okay. So I'm going to code from the bare bones, not taking any help from any IDE. That will help us become better programmers. You see, if you are using IDE like, let's say, Eclipse or NetBeans, I think that if you have some experience with Java, then it's better to use that. If you are a new programmer, it's always good to write everything from scratch. And also, we want to learn command lines better. Obviously, we'll have our friend here with us. So in case we are stuck anywhere, we can take its help. But the point is, we should not give an input query like create for me a GUI in Java and treat the entire thing as a black box. So that doesn't help us with our understanding. So we'll just use ChatGPT as an assistant wherever required. But most of the things we are going to understand on our own and code it. So I'll start with opening a new terminal. So it's called terminal in Ubuntu or Linux. So Windows call it PowerShell. Okay, I'm going to create a directory for my Java GUI. And as I do this, you can actually see a directory being made here in this folder. As soon as I click on this, you should see a new directory being created over here. Delete come up. Yeah. So I get this directory over here. I'll navigate inside this with the help of my change directory command. And now I'm inside this particular directory. This is the place where we'll write our code. So let me create a new file with Notepad++ called my first GUI.java. So I got this file, and as you can see here, it's also created here. So we don't need this. We'll be using command line. So how do we get started? So we will start with a very simple program, which which just makes a window appear. That's all. So a window is like if you open some app like calculator. So the outer part of it, that's a window that contains this menu bar, this small logo, and this title. That's all we are looking forward to. The components inside, we'll see that later. Just this outer thing we are talking about, it's actually called a frame in the language of Java. I'm going to keep my class name the same as my file name. It's up to you. You can give it any class name and create a main function inside it. And that's the essentially the backbone of any Java program. So we have seen it from the first day in the course. And whenever you run this particular class, whatever is written in main, that will start executing from here. Okay. Now all we want is a frame. So if you look at all the components of this swing class, so as we discussed, we are going to use two classes. So one is AWT and another is swing, right? So your frame class, so you want to create a frame here, and as we have discussed, everything in Java is a class. So you have a class for a frame also, and all these classes, they are available in your swing package. And most of the times you'll see all these classes, they are preceded by a J, which stands for Java. So we are looking forward to create a Java frame. So I'll say JFrame. So please note that J and F both are in capitals here. It is case sensitive. So I'm going to create a new JFrame object F, and I'll say it's equal to new JFrame. That's all. So I have created a frame over here, and let us just see if it works. Java C, my first GUI.java, and I actually get an error here. It says I cannot find the symbol JFrame. So let's try to figure out what is wrong with it. JFrame is definitely a class in Java, but the code gives us error. So from time to time, we will be looking into Java documentation. So I'll come here and just move it slightly. So let me look the JFrame Java documentation. So here we have JFrame, and as you can see, we have a class called JFrame, and you can see that the package that JFrame is, it's javax.swing. So that's the error being here. See, whenever you write a Java code, the only package that gets included by default is your java.lang package. Java.lang, it is automatically imported. But you talk about other packages, you need to import them. So java.lang, it has your classes that we have been using, like the system class, the object class, and the string class even. So for using all these classes, we never had to use any kind of import statement because it's implicitly imported. But given that we are working with swings now and it is in javax.swing, so we need to import this. So you can just pick up this entire thing from here and put a import statement. Import this particular class, and now this code should be ready to run. So before that, if you look at this particular class JFrame, so you can see that it has a long inheritance hierarchy here, right? This entire thing. And so inheritance is one of the most used concepts in Java. And as you can see, the top class in your inheritance hierarchy is the object class. Then there are a lot of other classes, and then we have the JFrame class. So we'll briefly talk about what is a component, what is a container when the time comes. But right now, we only want to use the JFrame class. Yeah. Coming back to our code. So since we have imported this, it should work fine now. Let's check. I still get this error. What is wrong? Am I at the correct place? Let me save it. Okay, probably I didn't save it. So when you run this, you don't see any error. Your program terminates, but you don't see any frame over here, right? Nothing pops up. If a frame was created, it would have popped up. So what is wrong over here is whenever you create a JFrame, right, it's also or some component here, by default it is invisible. So if you read a little bit into the documentation, you will get that. Let me just figure out where it is written. We come to this class JFrame. Right now, I'm unable to find it. So if you read through the documentation, you'll find that when you initially make a frame, by default, it's actually invisible. So you need to set it visible. And to set it visible, you'll have a function. You want to search for that function. You just type for visibility and check it. Okay, that is here. You see, so here is a constructor of JFrame that we have used. And if you look at it, it says that it constructs a new frame that is initially invisible. So let's see what we can do to set it visible. So when I searched for visible here, you can see a function here which is set visible. And as you can see that this function is in java.awt.window, but you don't have to worry about this particular class because we are inheriting this class. You can directly use this function set visible. So it's an inherited function. If you click on set visible, you can see how to use it. So you just say set visible boolean b, right? So whatever is your object name followed by set visible and whether you want to set it true or false. So let me just take it and make this frame visible, and your boolean value should be true here. So f dot set visible true. That's all. And let's check now. When you run this small frame pops up here. So you can actually drag it and make it bigger and smaller. So but again, the point is when it actually popped up, it was way too small, and we wouldn't like that. Another problem with this is when you close it, you see your frame is closed, but your application is still running. Your program doesn't end, so you have to manually do a control C to just exit through this program, right? So what do we do now? So these are the two problems that we want to solve. The first one is very easy to solve. If you want to increase the size of this frame, so you have a function called set size. We have functions for almost everything that we are going to use, and the size that you give here are the height and the width, both of which are in pixels. Now to get a feeling of how big is a pixel, you can just set some size and check how big the frame is when it appears. So this is your 400 cross 400 size. If you want bigger than this, if you want to change width and height, you can change the parameters accordingly. Okay, but again, when I closed it, the application didn't close. So what do we do for that? We can look through the documentation again a bit to get an idea of what is happening. Scroll up. I want to go back to my JFrame class. Yeah. And if you see here, it says unlike a frame, a JFrame has some notion. So frame was actually a class which was in your AWT package, but now again it was having, so people now use JFrame from your Swing class. So it says JFrame has some notion of how to respond when you attempt to close the window. So the default behavior is to simply hide the JFrame when you close the window. So the point is your JFrame is just hidden. You do not it's not closed, and hence your application is not closed. So if you want to change this default behavior, you can use this function called set default close operation, and you can pass an integer value to it. So let me take this function. This is what we are going to use now, and we'll say f dot set default close operation, but still we do not know what integer to pass here, right? So we do not know what integer to pass here. I click on this, right? So you actually don't have to write an integer here, 1, 2, 3, or so on. There are some integer variables which are already created that you can directly use. So if you say do nothing on close, that's some integer value which will do nothing on close. You can type in hide on close, dispose on close, exit on close. So all of these are variables which are defined in, again, another class window constants, but again you are inheriting that, so you can directly use it. So what we want is exit on close. So let's look again a bit about this exit on close. What is this? So if you click on exit on close, as you can see, it's a static final integer variable. Final means you cannot extend these classes and change the value of this variable. It's a final variable. It has some value defined by Java, some integer value, and that's what you have to use. It's a static variable, means that it's not invoked on an object, right? You can invoke it with the class name. So what we are going to write here is exit on close, and in which class it is? It's in the JFrame class. So that's all. Right, so again note that we have used JFrame.exit on close here because it's a static variable. Go back and run it. Okay. So you now get a better frame which is of a nice size, and when you close this frame, your application also closes. One more small thing before we end this video is, what if you want to set the title of this frame? You see, as we open this calculator app over here, it has calculator written over here, so there is some title to it, right? So for that also you have a function which is set title. You can search it in the documentation, and you can say my first GUI We forgot a semicolon. The title appears here, my first GUI. Now, if you want to shorten this code, you don't have to call this function explicitly. So if you look at these constructors of your JFrame, if you look at the constructor of this JFrame, you have another constructor sitting right here, which says you can pass it a string, which is going to be its title. So instead of calling this function explicitly, you can just write the whole thing over here. And that is the use of constructors. Some of you have asked me, why do we use constructors? So you don't have to set an additional function like this. When the moment you create a JFrame, it will come with its own title. So that's all. We have created a very simple frame. In the next video, we will see how you can add some other components to this frame, right? Just like in the case of calculator, you had some buttons and you have some labels, some areas where you can type in your own text, etc. So how to do that will come up in the next one.